Sorry to keep everybody waiting there. I got a little bit held up, but I wanted to do a video about this viral information that's been going around concerning Austin private wealth. I'm here outside the Arsenal in Central Park. Do people know about this thing? It was an actual arsenal at some time. But basically what happened yesterday is I started getting a lot of, people were sending me on Twitter, on X, links to this. I forget who made the original post, but it was a post. And if people aren't following me on X, I would really recommend that you do that. You can go to X and look up at JG_CSTT. Thanks to all the new people who have been following on X and elsewhere. I know everybody is very interested in the really anomalous information that's coming out about this assassination attempt against Donald Trump. So we saw these posts that were alleging that Austin private wealth had ties to George W. Bush because the post claimed that James A. Baker III it's like a senior policy director at the investment firm or something like that. Now, James Baker III, James A. Baker III, he should not be confused with Jim Baker, who was the general counsel of the FBI and then became the deputy general counsel of Twitter, I think in May or June of 2020, after Trump issued an executive order that wanted to make it illegal to censor American citizens on social media. It was rapid. See, just to focus on the wrong Jim Baker for a second. Jim Baker, the guy who's in his 50s, or I'd say he's in his 50s, maybe he's 60. That attorney guy who was the FBI general counsel and then later went to Twitter, he got kicked out of the FBI because he wasn't a party, he wasn't a defendant in the criminal prosecution of Michael Sussman, the lawyer for the Hillary Clinton campaign. He wasn't a defendant in the case, but he was involved. I think he was a witness or something like that. And the result of that case was that dude was exited from the FBI, went to the Lawfare Institute. Isn't that interesting? Benjamin Wittes. If you're following me on X, you can see me confront Benjamin Wittes and ask him some questions about all the nonprofit money for the Lawfare Institute that goes to his home. I love these gigantic bubbles. It's a fun thing for kids in the summertime. Let's see if we can get a huge bubble. There you go. It's not even huge. There's some people who are experts with this giant bubble process. But anyway, he leaves, he goes to the Lawfare Institute. You can see me talking to Benjamin Wittes about all this on X. He didn't like the conversation, but he's over there at the Lawfare Institute, and then he goes to something called like the R Street Institute. These are all like non-profit, think tanks, they call these things. It's basically just a way to funnel money to political operatives and, deep state idiots who get fired from the FBI. If if you're their brand of scumbag, they got a six-figure job waiting for you the day you get fired for scumbaggery. But if you're a whistleblower or somebody who's going to be like, hey, the FBI is doing all kinds of crimes and facilitating lawfare, and former FBI General Counsel Valerie Caproni is a corrupt, obese, disgusting criminal, even though she's a judge right now. Anyway, if you blow the whistle, they basically ruin you. But if you STFU and behave like a good deep state scumbag, like the Jim Baker who is not implicated in these allegations, then you get a job. And he was working at Twitter. So he went to Twitter right after Trump issued that executive order, and that's when the whole business at Twitter kicked into high gear. I don't want to get too far off track on the wrong Jim Baker, but James A. Baker III is the individual who's alleged to have some sort of involvement with this investment firm. And so I should have done this before. John Cullen likes to give the bottom line up front, and I agree that that's a good approach so that people know what to expect. Here's the bottom line. I don't trust or distrust this investment firm. I'm not trying to defend them, but I think it's important that we don't jump to conclusions. First of all, it's important for many reasons. This is a company, and if you go around the internet making false statements about them that damage their business, they could sue you. So I also want to make sure that everybody understands, no one should take any action based on anything that I'm saying. Don't pursue people that I'm talking about. Don't, antagonize them or tell them that they're, just don't do anything. Nothing I ever say is a call to action apart from requests for people to sponsor the show on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. or crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. That helps a lot when people sponsor the show. And if you find this information useful and valuable, you can sponsor for as little as $3 a month, plus a 58-cent Odyssey fee. You just go to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth and you can do that. But there's just no evidence that this James A. Baker has ever had anything to do with this investment firm. So that was my first issue. Somebody sends me something on Twitter, even if it sounds probable and appeals to my bias, I don't want to necessarily immediately believe it. It needs to be evaluated first. And so what I mean by that is a lot of people saw this claim and said, oh, this sounds just like what happened with 9/11. There were allegations, credible allegations, evidence, and I believe it happened, that there was some kind of massive short sale or several of like United Airlines and American Airlines, and that was like, the day before, the week before, or whatever, 9/11. And I mean, obviously, it wouldn't be too difficult to anticipate that like an unprecedented airplane disaster and unprecedented national event that just put everybody into a funk, arguably for years, it's not that difficult to calculate that might be likely to cause airline stocks to go down. Likewise, if you had foreknowledge that Trump would be assassinated, it's pretty likely that Truth Social, or rather Trump Media and Technology Group, the publicly traded stock that, Truth Social, I think it's the owner or whatever, it's a pretty easy guess that would go down. I mean, look, no offense, Trump, but who the hell is using Truth Social except to look at what you're saying there? If Truth Social without Donald Trump is like a Terminator movie without Arnold Schwarzenegger. What's the point? And even Terminator movies with Arnold Schwarzenegger now aren't good anymore. But the point is, it's pretty easy to anticipate, and it's a fair hypothesis, assumption, it's a fair thing to investigate whoever might have made a short sale on this stock for any amount, days or even 2 weeks before this assassination attempt. Now, people point to the fact that there was a huge buy, and the company has already responded. For people who haven't been following this particular story for the past day, what happened was I saw the thing and I was sufficiently suspicious of the claims because they lacked corroborating evidence. And so I started to look into some of this stuff, and I couldn't find evidence. And I started asking some of the accounts that were just like super rapidly posting this and making it go out viral. I was like, well, what evidence supports this claim that James Baker is a senior policy director at this company? Because I'm looking at their webpage and it doesn't say anything about him. Nothing, Google search for James Baker and this company, it doesn't say that he founded it and left or anything. There was just like no evidence to support this claim. And furthermore, who I want to call out is that fucking asshole Mike Adams, the health ranger. He's pretty fat around the middle for a health ranger, and he's a liar and a social engineer who entertains that fake doctor, Paul Cottrell. When I say entertains, I mean he has him on his show. I've personally dealt with Mike Adams, so this is not jealousy. This is not, Mike Adams should come and sue me if he feels like what I'm saying is not true, and I'm willing to bet a lawsuit that he won't do that. Because he knows a lot of evidence would come out that is likely to prove that what I'm saying is true. I haven't proved it in court yet, so this statement is technically pure opinion, but it's my opinion that Mike Adams, the health ranger, is a liar. And he was one of the major accounts pushing this out. Now, the thing that bothered me so much about the utter bullshit that fat professional asshole Mike Adams was pushing out was that he said, James Baker and George Bush and all this unsubstantiated stuff, and look at who they're donating money to. The ADL, Hadassah, the Jewish this, the Jewish that, and he just, put a list of these Jewish charities that this company was alleged to be donating to. Didn't put a link to their website saying that or anything like that. Oh, here's more illegal food sales. This shouldn't be happening. Didn't put a link, didn't include the entire list of charities that this thing was giving money to, and basically jumped to a lot of conclusions and got a lot of people riled up. What I was seeing were a lot of anti-Jewish comments, like coming to the conclusion that the Jews must have planned the assassination of Trump, or I don't know exactly what they were trying to imply, but it was stoking Jewish hatred. And I am Jewish, okay? I'm not very religious. I don't wear a yarmulke. I think real Orthodox and serious Jewish people would scoff at the lack of Judaism that I practice, but I appreciate the heritage, and I don't like it when people spread false statements that stoke hatred of all Jewish people, because it includes me. And by the way, if you consider yourself somebody who's like not a racist or a bigoted, hateful asshole, you should also feel this way, whether you're Jewish or not. So it's a big fuck you to Mike Adams, but let's get into the evidence that proves that what they were talking about yesterday is at least idiotic. I should have brought this video to play it on, let's see, is there any way that I can do that? Not really, it's too late. But people could still go back to X and watch the video. It's a brief phone call with a partner in the firm named AJ Wagner. And basically all I did was I went to their, About Us on their webpage and looked at the people who were working at the company and kind of scrolled around for somebody that had a title that seemed like they would know something about what's going on. And this said that he was a partner. Now, it's not a law firm, so I don't really know how it works with partners and CEO or whatever. But anyway, I just saw this guy Wagner, AJ Wagner, looked up his phone number on the internet, and I called him, not to troll him, not to be like, hey, you're giving George Bush money or whatever the hell it was that these vague allegations on the internet were making. I wanted to figure out what was going on. I mean, is this true? Did this transaction happen? It was like a dead bird or something. And people heard what he said there. Most people weren't that satisfied by what he said, and I too also felt he was being maybe less than 100% honest, but keep in mind, this guy doesn't know who the hell I am. He has no obligation to speak to me. Frankly, I'm surprised he said anything Sorry, AJ, if that phone call got you into trouble. Look at these ducks. People have told me these ducks are dangerous, they say. People tell me that if you get too close, this duck can peck you and hurt you.
That's all right. Oh, no,
Do you guys know that?
Yeah.
Enjoy the pecking. Anyway, not trying to get AJ Wagner in trouble, not trying to get this company in trouble. We first need to understand what's going on. So the bottom line up front is, I do believe this transaction, not up front anymore, the bottom line 15 minutes in, I do believe this transaction needs to be investigated. I can't say if this was a legitimate error or some kind of shenanigans that somebody was doing. I just don't know enough about stock trading, how the SEC works, how these reports work, what it indicates. I mean, people who don't know anything about it are reading it and telling me things. It's like, well, okay, are you like a stockbroker or some kind? I mean, I don't know. I asked Charles about it, and people know that he's rearranging his life to move out of New York, and so he's busy packing and I don't know what, meeting with people and doing all kinds of stuff, but he's been a little bit out of pocket, and he didn't have a chance to watch the video or read the documentation, but he told me that these type of reporting errors are not uncommon, and that it's like again, this is like calling a friend who's a doctor and saying, hey, somebody I know has this thing going on with their leg. What do you think is wrong with them? And they can't even talk to the patient or look at the case or know anything about it, and you're asking somebody to make an assessment. Charles basically said you'd have to look at it to understand what's going on, but just the fact that there's a 10,000 multiplier. This is the statement that they made on their website. I've included it in the thumbnail here, basically saying that some third-party, service provider or something to the transaction made some kind of error that multiplied all their transactions that day by a factor of 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever it was. They're alleging that some particular error affected several trades like this, and people are pointing out Rumble and this. And I absolutely understand why that is suspicious. They even say in this comment that they understand as well. They recognize that, an assassination attempt on the President of the United States is an upsetting thing. They recognize that this is a coincidental circumstance. So the bottom line is, I don't know if something untoward has happened with that financial transaction or not. But I mean, it's just not within my expertise to evaluate. I'm good at finding people's phone numbers. Are you girls feeding cookies to squirrels?
No, I'm trying to feed a bird. Would you like to buy a cookie?
Cookies to birds?
Yeah.
No, I'm good with the cookies, but it's fun to watch you feeding birds and squirrels. Have a nice day, ladies. The part that I wanted to investigate was this Jewish hatred that was being spread by irresponsible social engineering idiots. And so I asked the guy, he wouldn't talk about that part. And some interesting things happened after the phone call. So first of all, let's just take a look at this. If you look at the website, they do have a section there where they're talking about, the charities that they're giving money to. And I mean, I don't know that much. We'd have to look into these individual charities. So far, almost every single charity I've ever looked at is a fraud. But as I go through this, you got the Boy Scouts, the YMCA, American Cancer Society, Young Judea, Shalom Austin. There you got the Michael J. Fox Foundation, Jewish Community something or other. So then there's Catholic something, Goodwill, St. Jude's. So this, to me, it just sort of looks like a mix of, there's Hadassah, that's a Jewish one. Children's Tumor Foundation, that seems maybe secular. LDF, I don't know what that is. Del Mar College. I don't know, to me, this just looks like a fairly normal spread of, charities that a particular company might choose to give money to. We don't know anything about this company. Maybe, I don't even know that much about Austin, right? It's in Austin. Maybe they have a lot of clients who are Jewish and they just decided to donate to these Jews. Who knows what motive? They could give $1,000 to each of those things. But what does that mean? If there's I just don't understand what that means. Because the other thing to remember is, like, let's say you open up an E-Trade account or a Charles Schwab, or let's say you're some rich person who's dealing with a thing like this, and then you say, hey, I want to short Trump stock, and they go do it. How do we know that they knew anything? It could just be the person calling them up to do the transaction, right? I have no doubt that there are people who had foreknowledge that there was going to be an assassination attempt on Trump. It's just too much evidence. Oh, look at that. The pigeons are eating this horse's food, and he's kicking the bucket to chase him away. Watch this. Pigeons are about to get kicked. The horse is pissed.
Hey guys, can I rejoin today? No, thank you, buddy.
He's not kicking anymore. Anyway, I don't think this is too nice to the horses, but it's okay for people that are arguing about that with something else. So I do think there are people who had foreknowledge that this was going to occur, and that thought is born out of the evidence that we've been finding that just defies explanation if there wasn't foreknowledge. It's just, you know, John Cullen, we did a show with Charles yesterday that was amazing. And then John was on with Dr. Jason Dean this morning with even more stunning evidence. What's going to happen right now, and if you don't know John Cullen, check him out. He's on X at I_am_John Cullen. And also every Friday, we have the sponsor exclusive show, John Cullen Investigates. If you become a sponsor of Crowdsource the Truth on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, or Subscribestar or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, or subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, or patreon.com/IamJohnCullen. There's a lot of channels you can choose from to watch this stuff on, but you can watch that sponsor exclusive show with Charles. John also did a show this morning with Jason Dean on Rumble. That's Brave TV on Rumble. And John has found video that he says, and I agree, appears to show an individual standing on the water tower. And there's 2 or 3 eyewitness videos that I've seen that John is showing on his X account and elsewhere, where eyewitnesses are saying they saw the counter snipers shoot the dude on the water tower. They say that outright. So what's up with not interviewing those people on CNN and everything like that? Yeah, the pigeons are flying rats, but it was kind of funny to watch a horse kick them. I mean, that's fair game, right? Wild animals fighting each other. It's like a New York City safari. Here we see the pigeon going for this filthy horse feed. Anyway, yeah, so I mean, people want to just jump to all these conclusions and condemn these guys. But so I called AJ Wagner. He told me that there was a clerical mistake that they fixed as soon as possible, that the transaction happened on June 30th, not July 13th. Now, if that's the only defense for this, you know, I'm not convinced. Like, it doesn't have to be the day before to show that you had foreknowledge. Obviously, if this was something other than an idiot crawling up to the roof and being a lone shooter, which I mean, there's just no way that that is what happened. There's obviously a coordinated thing. I personally have no doubt that that Cheadle woman who runs the Secret Service was directly involved in executing this. She's refusing to speak to senators. She's going to get subpoenaed. I think they've already announced maybe the 22nd or the 24th. They're going to grill that lady. I mean, this is one of the most insane crimes that's ever happened. But it doesn't mean that this Austin Personal Wealth knew anything about it or had anything to do with it, even if this trade was initiated by an individual who did have foreknowledge. They could just be an innocent brokerage. And setting that aside, there's just been zero evidence that George Bush or James A. Baker III have been involved with this. James A. Baker III right now is a like 92-year-old guy. He was the Secretary of State. He had something to do with Ronald Reagan first, I think, but he was the Secretary of State under George H.W. Bush. I used to think he was the worst guy ever. Joe Biden is definitely giving him a run for his money. But I don't know. And the thing is, when I started asking these accounts, what evidence do you have that James Baker is affiliated with this thing? They were like going on to other things. It's like, you know, when somebody is lying and distracting, and it was very George Webb what these people were doing, just trying to, you know, create some kind of nonsense. And so what this makes me think is, I think the transaction happened. Obviously, it's recorded there. I don't know enough about how these transactions work, how the recording of these transactions work. I don't know enough about that to make a determination if anything unusual is going on there. But I just think even if there is, we don't have sufficient evidence that A.J. Wagner or anybody at that Austin Private Wealth had any idea, other than some client of theirs puts in an order for some kind of trade and they execute it. But there are some strange things that happen after I made that phone call. And again, what I'm about to say is not an indictment of them. This is just an observation of evidence that exists now. I don't yet know what it means. But so I called that dude, and I would presume that they're aware that my video now is going somewhat viral. I think it's got, I don't know, it had a few 100,000 people looking at it. Let's see where it's at. Yeah, 821,000 views on X as I live stream this video. So if you haven't seen that yet, go over to x.com at JG_CSTT and take a look at this phone call with A.J. Wagner of Austin Private Wealth. He was polite. He didn't need to speak to me at all. And so the part that he didn't answer was about the charities. We looked at the charities. He might not know anything about that. This guy is a partner. It could be somebody else who's involved with where the money goes for charities. So don't really know about that, but something weird did happen. People who were looking at my video noticed that when they went to check the welcome to our team page where they had everybody that I got A.J. Wagner's name from, that had been taken down. So, I mean, again, I was advising A.J. Wagner that the company should get ahead of this thing. Love the hat, man.
Thank you.
I was advising them. Look at that, people wearing MAGA hats around New York City. Oh, damn it, I was still on this thing, sorry. Oh man, sorry everybody. Kid walked by with a MAGA hat, eating an ice cream. Maybe he was 20. Anyway.
Nice.
So they deleted their About Us page. Now you might say, ooh, that's super suspicious. Maybe. I mean, it doesn't seem like the kind of thing that you would necessarily do if you didn't have something to cover up. But it doesn't inherently mean that they do have something to cover up. And it's certainly not any evidence that James Baker or George Bush have anything to do with the company. And by the way, people are saying, oh no, they're gonna make it impossible to see if those guys work there because they took away the About Us page. Well, not exactly, because people know that the Internet Archive exists at the Wayback Machine, and this stuff is still there. I don't want to dox their people because I'm not trying to irritate this company. I'm not encouraging anybody to go there and get that information. I'm just saying I have looked at that page. James A. Baker III is not on there. He is not, as far as I can tell, and no one has presented any evidence to the contrary, but he is not a senior policy advisor at that thing. If somebody has evidence that he is, I'm certainly willing to be corrected. I'm just saying right now, no one's been able to present it, and I've been asking for like a day now on a tweet that kind of close to 1 million people have seen, I feel like that evidence would have come to me if it were available. Whoever wrote that initial post, you would hope, would have that information. So it starts to make me think that maybe somebody found out about this trade, and either because they're overzealous and do not adhere to strict principles as far as finding evidence for something that you say before you state it definitively, but the statement that I saw said that James Baker is a policy advisor at this thing, and went on to describe how he was involved with the Bush family and blah, blah, blah. So if you're talking about the James Baker who's involved with the Bush family, you're talking about the guy who was the Secretary of State under Papa Bush. And there's a lot of other stuff that guy did with the Bushes too. I don't have his Wikipedia in front of me right now, but that's the James Baker affiliated with the Bushes, not the guy who's 30 years younger and was like in, high school or whatever when George Bush, he would have been out of college, but you know what I'm saying. That guy was in his 20s when George Bush was the president. He wasn't in his cabinet. And also he is not affiliated with the investment company. I don't know where that asshole works. He got fired from Twitter. He got fired, it was Twitter. UMG. Well, actually, no. There's some difference. This came up in the P. Diddy lawsuit. UMG it's Dutch. So this is going to be something else. Universal Music Group, that's maybe in America, I don't know. Anyway, P. Diddy's got a hearing. They just issued the order the other day. Here, I like dogs with shoes. P. Diddy's got a hearing coming up October 20-something. So nobody has any evidence that James Baker has anything to do with this, and all of the evidence, or I should say, all of the evidence-free claims looked like somebody was going to hit the ambulance. All of the evidence-free claims about George Bush are contingent upon James Baker being involved with this thing. Now, I think what might be happening is this is a social engineering scheme. And I'm looking at you, Mike Adams, because I think you're a liar and a troublemaker. And I think somebody said, wow, this evil, sinister plan to murder Donald Trump failed because we are incompetent boobs who literally cannot shoot straight. And now we're super screwed. So I believe what is happening right now is that a multitude of actions have been spun up. Obviously, there's a whole lot of stuff surrounding what's going to happen with Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. This nonsense with Joe Biden supposedly having COVID after getting 50 shots or whatever. How many times we saw him on television getting a shot. Is that a Raptor R? Can't see from here. Let's see if we can see the supercharger. I don't think it is. If you want a 700 horsepower pickup truck, I'm with you. Anyway, I believe this is a social engineering play. And the reason I say that is because the Jews did it is like the number one social engineering thing since the dawn of time. People who are regular viewers have heard me say before that I've recently come to believe that the entity that created Nazism also created Zionism, and that pitting two sides of an argument against one another is like their go-to move, right? So in order to pit two sides against one another, you need to first define those sides. And as I said, one of the oldest approaches to this in the book is the Jews did everything. Why did the Jews get kicked out of all these countries? Whatever. Jews run Congress. There's 30 Jews on the, somebody said Israelis. Somebody said there's 30 Israelis working in the Bush. This was the same claim. 30 Israelis in the Bush cabinet. Now, I do not deny that there were a lot of Zionist, neocon, criminal assholes who were Jewish and might have had Israeli citizenship. I just don't know. I haven't seen that. I'd like to see, some sort of tangible evidence, maybe 30 passports, maybe an interview with the person saying that they have Israeli or dual citizenship, or a Wikipedia, at least something tangible. And I'm not saying, oh, Wikipedia, that's true. I'm just saying you can't just write something down, put it on Twitter, and have people say, oh, look, this is on Twitter, so there it is, that's the evidence. People don't seem to understand the difference between proof, evidence, and some people don't even understand the difference between an opinion and evidence. And they just think that, crowdsourcing means everybody gets to blurt out whatever their particular opinion might be, and that I don't think it looks like the dead guy on the roof. Well, fine, but that's not evidence, that's your opinion. So this one statement said that George H.W. Bush had 30 Israelis in his cabinet, but it didn't name 30 people. It didn't show 30 Israeli passports associated with those people. It didn't cite any kind of researched article that went into any depth about the claim. It just spewed out that claim with no evidence, and people were spreading it around. And when big accounts like Mike Adams, these people, some of these accounts had hundreds of thousands of viewers, it's pretty irresponsible. And look, I don't know if people saw, this was on Twitter as well. I was just walking home, maybe 2-3 months ago, and there was just a riot going on outside FIT, which is 2 blocks from my apartment. And I just took out my cell phone and started recording it, and these masked Hamas supporting Antifa maniacs just started surrounding me, telling me to get out of there, go home, Zionist, poking me, coming right in my face with Palestinian flags, and the stick of the flag was to poke me in the eye. Pretty dangerous. And if people have been watching for a while, they're going to remember. I wish I had this at my fingertips. Let's see, does this phone have the image? Probably not. But what I learned was there was an article in the New York Post which showed the picture of a individual who they said was a Venezuelan gang member who had been arrested and incarcerated in, just maybe thrown in there for a little while, into Rikers Island. And they showed a picture of the guy. And what's funny is when I was I don't think I have that picture here right now, but as I was outside this protest being accosted, it was this guy who I suspect of being a Venezuelan gang member. He had a keffiyeh wrapped around his face, and I just noticed he was being particularly cautious about totally covering his face. When you see somebody who's not 90 and covering with a mask like this and constantly adjusting it with the sunglasses so you cannot see any identifying aspects of their face, that should not be allowed. And that is someone who, in my opinion, has bad intentions. And that's what this guy was doing. And I noticed that, so I zoomed all the way in on my phone as far as I could, and I kept the phone on him, even while he was pretty far away from me. And as I anticipated might happen, out of the whole couple minutes of video I got of this guy, there was only 3 frames that were clear enough to see. And in one of them, the thing came down to here. So you could see his eyes, his nose, his facial hair, his mouth. It was a pretty clear picture of his face. And he looked kind of exactly like the Venezuelan gang member pictured in the New York Post. So much so that the next day I was walking on the street and I just saw a police lieutenant standing there, and I showed it to him, and he agreed with me that it was an uncanny resemblance. And he said, okay, we're going to do a report for you. Give me your ID. And I said, no. Why do you need my ID to take public domain evidence from me? You should investigate this. And the lieutenant got all pissed off. And was like, all right, if you want to give me your ID, I mean, I'm trying to help you. Bullshit. The last time I gave my ID to the cops after I got choked on the street by a maniac, they gave me a ticket. And there's a whole lawsuit going on over that. Goodman versus the city of New York. It's still pending in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York. We're going to see what the hell is going to happen with that. But the point is, I am 99.9% sure that this was the same guy. So what does that mean? Does that mean that the police get a Venezuelan gang member in Rikers Island and say, oh wow, here's a guy who can speak English? Because he was speaking to me in English, you know, F you, go home, whatever, Zionist, blah, blah, blah. But he had a Spanish accent. And I was thinking, what kind of Hamas member is Spanish? But whatever. We have, you know, gays for Hamas, so anything goes. But I have seen so much evidence, including the secret signed agreement between Felix Sater and Andrew Weissman. And don't forget, Andrew Weissman was also the FBI general counsel right after Valerie Caproni, when she got drummed out by Congress. And by the way, when I say Valerie Caproni is a criminal, that's not my conclusion. That was John Conyers' conclusion in Congress. He said she broke the law. I got to look this up. I don't remember if it was 485 times or 4,850 times, but it wasn't once. And they found that General Counsel's office had broken the law and somebody needs to be prosecuted. But that didn't happen. They just kicked out Valerie Caproni and gave her probably a 7-figure job at, was it Northrop Grumman? I can't remember if it was Lockheed Martin or Northrop Grumman, but it was one of those, Raytheon, something like that. She had some big money job, I'm sure, stock and probably at least high 6 figures. But that's the kind of deep state payback you get. Great job, or whatever. But so then she leaves, Andrew Weissman becomes FBI General Counsel, and right after Andrew Weissman, Jim Baker. Not James A. Baker III, Jim Baker, who would be fired from Twitter by Elon Musk. So it's a tight crew here, and people say, oh, this is complicated names for me to remember. Look at this, we have some sort of Times Square flea market. This is not usually here. Let's look at this. So there's this tight crew of criminals at the FBI and in the General Counsel's office. And so I got on this whole tangent because we've spoken about the agreement between Andrew Weissman and Felix Sater that was signed in 1998, December, I don't remember the exact date, 18th maybe, but it was like 2 months after Valerie Caproni left the FBI, forgive me, that was signed with Andrew Weissman 2 months after Valerie Caproni left the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York. That's the same office Jack Smith was an assistant U.S. attorney in. That's the same office Burl Howell, the judge in D.C. case, January 6th case against Trump. These are all Eastern District of New York, former U.S. attorney, former assistant U.S. attorneys. It's a cabal. I spoke to Robert Costello about that, and he found the insight helpful, I believe, and said that he had noticed that they were all from the Eastern District of New York. Remember, Robert Costello, he was an assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York. Yeah, with Rudy Giuliani. This is a little bit more standard fare for Times Square here. What have we got here? Capoeira.
What's going on?
Could you imagine what would be going on in Times Square right now if the former president had been murdered 5 days ago? I don't know if any of these people would care or realize the implications of it, but it would have been absolutely the most terrible thing to happen since 9/11, in my opinion. And I definitely think the stock market would go down, certainly Truth Social would go down. I don't know, it could be a mistake. We need more research on this. I'm not telling people, oh, this is over and it's solved. I agree, it's a suspicious transaction, but I want people to be cautious, because the other thing, well, I didn't get into the details of the social engineering play. Obviously, you know, they can stew everybody up on, you know, hating Jewish people and blaming things on Jewish people that may or may not have anything to do with any Jewish people in particular. But see, the thing that happens is, and I don't think most people do this is why I say it's social engineering, is that people then just get onto Twitter and start making like stupid anti-Jewish comments to me. And I certainly had nothing to do with the transaction. I didn't even know about it until Mike Adams and other people started posting it. So, I don't know, I mean, I guess if you want to be an ignorant, bigoted, small-minded jackass, you could gain a lot of weight and strap an orange gun to your waist, which is what Mike Adams does. He's happened to the sound. There you go. He's an absolute coward without the gun. There's a lot of naked cow people cropping up in Times Square. But the other aspect of the social engineering is they're trying to flood the zone with fake information so that if big, respected accounts, like, I don't know who they're trying to get that to, but even small accounts, they're just trying to constantly put bad information down the pipeline so that if people start, this guy's got no cows, but he's mostly naked. They want to put bad information out there so that if I report on it or somebody else they don't like reports on it in a way that they can say, oh, look, see, it's fake. Jason went telling everybody that George Bush and the Jews did everything, and it turns out to be fake and he's an idiot. So I'm here to tell you that I can't tell you if this was a legitimate error or some sort of corrupt transaction initiated, fucking stupid bitch, some sort of criminal transaction initiated by somebody with foreknowledge of what would happen on July 13th. I don't know. And you know, people are like, oh, that guy was lying. I don't know if he was lying. I mean, I agree that he wasn't being completely forthcoming, but he has no obligation to tell me anything, and I'm asking him all kinds of details about their business. It's like, what? Why? Frankly, I'm surprised that he even spoke to me. I hope he doesn't get in trouble at work. And I'm sorry if you do, AJ. Wasn't my intention, but yeah, sorry, man. Appreciate the info. Now, I don't know, what do people think about this? Let's give everybody a view of Times Square while I just briefly check the comments. What does it say here? Lou Dobbs, oh no. I liked Lou Dobbs. Lou Dobbs passed away. I'm sorry to hear that. Well, he was old. Yeah, I mean, somebody's saying no sound. I don't think that's correct. Sounds like sound. So maybe there's something wrong with your computer. Yeah, it takes a little while for the comments to catch up with my questions. We got a new Axel Foley, Eddie Murphy movie coming out, all kinds of stuff going down. But you know, there's a lot of people who like to post crap, and I don't like to do that. New York has a real serious problem with illegal vendors. And I mean, if you are spending money to get a permit from the city to have one of these carts, I don't understand why they're allowing what seems to be an organized network of illegal food vendors to take business from people who are paying taxes and rent and all that kind of stuff. Well, they do food. now we had a disruption with the sound, but that's because I bumped the wire. Nobody knows if those vendors are serving poison food or if they're paying taxes or whatever, but it's allowing this kind of underground economy of criminals to grow up. And we can see that like almost every single weed store has been closed, which makes no sense. But they continue to allow these food coolers and all these guys selling counterfeit Louis Vuitton. That stuff's allowed to happen. Could it be that Eric Adams or the NYPD or whoever wasn't getting a taste of the weed money? I mean, it certainly demonstrates, you realize that you're promoting crime, buying from illegal vendors. Why would you buy from an illegal vendor? You're a criminal, get off the streets with that. Oh, she's just a little whatever. These are all criminals here, taking our tax money, pushing out homeless Americans who could be receiving those benefits. And what do those homeless people do? They're driven to an even more desperate situation. I'm sure some of them will turn to crime. This is the deterioration of an organized society. And by the way, I think injecting that stupid nonsense about George Bush and James Baker and making donations to Jewish charities. Yeah, there was just that one point where the sound was bad. I can hear it. I'm monitoring the sound. Oh, Lou Dobbs was only 78. I didn't know that. I thought he was in his 80s. I liked Lou Dobbs. I'm sad that he's gone. There's two police officers doing nothing. Yeah, the sound was okay. So what do people think? I mean, I don't know. Somebody will know more about this. Honestly, until these big accounts, they should be ashamed of themselves. Mike Adams, he's like, oh, I'm doing acoustic research into the Vegas, this and that. I gotta ask John Cullen about that. I'm pretty sure that even though Mike Adams was out with that acoustic research early on and made a lot of hay out of it, I'm pretty sure in the end, didn't tell us. He's like, oh, there was a second shooter. It's like, okay, John Cullen has identified way more than two. Anyway, we're not gonna go into that. People should get onto Odyssey and watch the Legacy Las Vegas videos, but John Cullen has a methodical process where he goes through and finds evidence. Doesn't seem like some of the people making this thing go viral adhere to that same philosophy. They just put out whatever they think people are going to click on, which is very disappointing. Actually, let's see how the rate of this video is going, if people are still interested in watching, because I'm trying to debunk the stupidity. And if somebody comes with evidence that there is something going on there, I absolutely want to see that, and we'll publicize that as much as anything else. So it's 831,000 views now. I don't remember what it was. Maybe that's the same amount. So it's slowing down. Maybe everybody who wanted to see it has seen it. So here we go. Let's ask the cops. Officers, excuse me. Can I ask you officers a question, please?
Not at the moment.
Why? Why not?
Right now, we're trying to...
You guys are standing around doing nothing. He's texting. Why can't I ask you a question?
What's your question, sir?
Why are you allowing illegal food vendors to operate in New York City?
We're not allowing illegal food vendors to operate in New York City.
That woman doesn't have a permit to be
Okay.
selling fruit
Thank
on
you,
the
sir.
street.
I'll check her out in 1 second.
Huh?
I'll check her out in 1 second.
I'm going to stand here and watch until you do that.
All right, thank
I'm going to audit you doing nothing, Officer Phelan.
Can you give me 1
I
moment?
see you texting. What? What are you asking me to do?
Give me 1 moment.
I'm going to give you a moment. These guys are going to do nothing. Let's watch. This idiot started texting he's booking a grinder date. People are like, oh no, back the blue. The reason I'm doing this is because the NYPD are doing nothing. And these guys are just waiting around to collect a pension while crime runs rampant. Let's see.
Thank you.
Sorry, lady, but you can't come to this country illegally and sell food illegally. That's a crime. the cops to do something. Yeah, find out who gave her that food. Find out who's organizing this network of criminal food salespeople. I bet you all these pizza places, everybody paying rent to sell you a soda for $2. They don't want people out here selling food, and I don't either. Sorry, I mean, you look that woman in the face and it's a little bit sad, but you should have thought about that before you broke the law and entered this country and played your part in turning the whole entire city into shit. Look at all these cops standing around doing nothing. Excuse me, officers. I have a serious question. I've noticed recently a huge number of illicit marijuana shops being shut down.
Okay.
But none of the illegal food vendors or the counterfeit Louis Vuitton vendors. Why is that?
Oh, we're actually enforcing that, actively enforcing that.
It looks like you're standing around chatting, doing nothing. What part of active enforcement do I not understand? Sorry, what?
I'm not looking to argue with you. If you're looking to argue instead of have a question, have a good day. I'd like to direct you to
No, that was a
CPI.
serious question.
Well, it wasn't because you had to argue with my supervisor. I'd like to direct you to CPI.
He lied to me and he turned his back on me. You guys are totally irresponsible. The city is falling apart. All of you should resign and you should be ashamed of yourselves. You're standing around doing nothing. So, see, the cops are dicks. And I back the blue when the blue is worn by people who enforce the law. Not idiots who stand around inside a building while people are shooting at the president or chat each other up while the city is falling apart around us. Every single one of those guys should be fired. Oh, you're gonna argue. That's the way the cops don't do a damn thing in New York City. It's terrible. So that, you know, Dobbs family announcement. So James says a cop that short shouldn't be on the force. I agree with you, James. If I went to try out for the Knicks, they'd say you're over 50 and you're not even 6 feet tall, nowhere near. Get out of here. Here, this was a weed store, closed. They shut that down right away. It's very suspicious. These guys aren't cops. But all the weed stores have been closed down. Now, there are a lot of cops. Are those cops? Oh, those do look like cops over there, but they're all just standing around. They're actively enforcing. They're not actively enforcing a damn thing. How's it going? Guys seem to be paying an awful lot of attention to me. Somebody I don't know. But I agree with you. The Knicks wouldn't hire me. I'm too short, I'm too old, I'm not physically fit for the job. Same thing with like 130-pound women and 5-foot-tall people. What the hell are they doing being cops? I can tell you. All you need to do to be a cop is get fat and text in New York City. You don't need to enforce the law. So, Islet Y says they would never say that to the British police. I don't know if I would say that to the British police, but I'm not British and neither are these police. And I have, I think, a fairly good understanding of what you can and cannot say to a police officer. I would never attack them, but you see, they are totally unprofessional. And that guy who, I guess, I don't know what, he didn't have a white shirt, so maybe he was a sergeant, but the supervisor, oh, you're arguing with my supervisor. He's such a delicate snowflake, the supervisor. Those idiots are standing around not even paying attention. So I don't know, I hope that people will, look, that restaurant's out of business. I hope that people will tune in. That was a pretty fancy restaurant for this area and is relatively new. My office used to be around here. I hope that people will tune in tomorrow. The episode with John Cullen is going to be incredible. He's uncovering so much evidence every day. It's astounding. Look at that. The longest standing. See, why did they wait until now to put Weed World out of business? That thing has been illegally selling weed for like 6 years. And only now have they put it out of business. Something crooked is happening.
I went to the store.
See, the other thing that's really funny is one of the rules they made about how you get a license to sell weed in New York, because there are still like, I don't know, maybe 9. Here, Mr. Nug, out of business. There are, I think, 9 or 12, very small number of licensed cannabis shops. And the way they did it was they said, oh, well, you know, because everything has to be based on DEI rather than the actual merit of your capabilities or your ability to run a business or your ideas or whatever. DEI, so if you had been subjected to, prosecution for selling marijuana, you were prioritized as far as getting a license. So instead of giving licenses to businesses that maybe started legally in California or Arizona and now wanted to expand to New York, where they have perhaps lots of experience and expertise in cultivating high quality strains that are going to be appealing to people who want to buy marijuana, they are saying, you know, you've got to grow it in New York, where no legal farmer has the 30 or 40 year experience in cultivating these crops that they have on the West Coast. I mean, that's like basically if they said, well, you can have a liquor store in New York City, but you can only sell wine from Newark. Okay? So basically they're just insisting or guaranteeing that you're going to get the lowest quality product available from a very small number of vendors. So that's going to drive the price up, reduce demand for the product, and reduce the amount of tax revenue that the state will get. My understanding was the purpose of making this product legal was to increase tax revenue, not to chase out businesses that are at least paying rent to a landlord who's paying taxes, and instead prioritize businesses that are selling counterfeit, probably stolen Louis Vuitton goods, reducing the tax base of a Louis Vuitton, legitimate vendor, and illegal food. Why do they choose to do that? I don't have evidence to prove this, but my personal feeling is it would have something to do with the fact that somebody is getting an illicit benefit. What's up? Somebody is getting an illicit benefit from the migrant business such that they don't want to disrupt it, and they were not getting a commensurate benefit from the weed businesses. That's what I think. Can't prove it yet, but we'll learn more about that. That's loud. Order online. Well, I mean, look, I don't think that's legal though, because then you're mailing weed. It's, and me buying weed is not the purpose of this argument. The purpose of this argument is to point out that the city is run by idiots who direct police resources to shutting down businesses.
Can I get 6 feet?
Directing police resources to shutting down businesses that could be increasing the tax base of the city, increasing the occupancy rate of retail spaces that are crazily empty, helping landlords stay in business, helping banks not have to repossess properties that can't be paid for. Instead, they just want to invigorate illegal migrant-run businesses and criminal operations. It's insane. So I don't know if during the course of this video anybody has found any evidence that James A. Baker III is in fact affiliated with Austin, what's it called? Austin Private Wealth? Yeah. If anybody has any evidence, actually it is still going up, 836,000 views. So 5,000 views at least, even just during the time that we've been talking about it. So people are interested in this, and I hope people will be discerning. Even when you see something that seems to appeal to your bias, you should really scrutinize everything extremely carefully. It smells like popcorn over here. This is the new Madison Square Garden and the entrance to Penn Station. It looks better. Still under construction, I guess.
There might be pieces. There might be.
It doesn't look world class though. That should be like a 8K TV up there. This is the same, Madison Square Garden is the same people who own that giant sphere in Vegas. This is nowhere near as impressive as that, and it wouldn't be, but at least if you put better graphics up there, it might, I don't know, that just doesn't look good to me. Canned margaritas. Yeah, so people are very interested. Please be discerning. Please question anything that you see, including me. I'm not telling anybody, no man, trust me, 48-hour rule. Put this out there and wait and see. No. Don't put something out unless you have very good confidence that high quality evidence supports the claim that you are making. Anything less than that just makes you less credible. I'm definitely at the point, we're pretty close to the end, but anytime I ever stop the broadcast on this last little walk, usually something crazy happens, and I don't want to miss that opportunity. I still call this series Ghost Town NYC, even though the ghost town aspect is pretty much over, although that's not true, because compared to pre-pandemic New York City, first of all, we didn't have these zombie-like hotels with electric bike motorcycle gangs, and I saw like a 3-year-old kid walking over here totally by himself. He walked out of, not the FedEx, I think there's a deli behind that FedEx truck, and the kid couldn't have been 4. He was the tiniest little kid. He like barely walked. He was just like waddling down the street, total baby. Obviously nobody cares about social engineers and limited hangouts. I know everybody likes Tucker Carlson, but remember when he interviewed Putin and Putin was talking about the denazification of Ukraine, and then the next interview that Tucker Carlson did was him getting interviewed, I forget who it was with, maybe Darren Beattie? I don't think so. Somebody interviewed Tucker on a podcast, and that comment about Nazis in Ukraine came up, and Tucker denied that there are Nazis in Ukraine. The Azov Battalion are Nazis, and there is a long history of full-up Nazis being all over Ukraine. Stefan Bandera, Nicola Lebed. This all goes back to Operation Paperclip and Aerodynamic. This is not conspiracy theory. It's kind of amazing to me that Tucker Carlson wouldn't know that. I realize it's not possible for everybody to know everything, and just because I know something or just because you know something doesn't mean that somebody else will. But the fact that he wouldn't research that and know about that before interviewing Putin, that doesn't make sense to me. So I think that Tucker Carlson is a limited hangout, and it was like, oh, he left Fox, he's sticking it to Fox. Limited hangouts are very tricky. Same thing with X. It's wonderful that they let me back onto X and that they let Alex Jones and Donald Trump. But what if That's just a reset of the Trojan horse. And they're planning to do something with X close to October. I think whatever they might have been planning prior to Saturday is out the window. That's what I think. I think they're scrambling now to improvise a new plan, because I think they thought that they would be rid of Trump last Saturday. And I am just so unbelievably pleased that they failed. Did people see the RNC last night? I should have mentioned this earlier. Donald Trump Jr.'s daughter, Kaya, gave a speech I could not believe. I don't know if I have ever seen anyone of any age give a speech that moving and touching. And the look on Donald Trump's face as he was watching her speak, I was almost brought to tears. Such an articulate and intelligent young lady. And it just made me think about that picture of that 5-year-old, what's her name? I forget Hunter Biden's daughter's name. There's another weed place put out of business. But that 5-year-old girl sitting there with the picture of Joe Biden like, ooh, I want to meet my grandpa. It's like, think about how sad that is versus Donald Trump there with all his kids and their kids and the granddaughter. So I believe every word she said. That was so sincere. And even Don Jr., he said that she came to him and said she wants to make this speech and everything. It was an unbelievable moment. If you haven't seen it, I encourage checking that out. Don Jr. has been retweeting it, as he should. He has every right to be the proudest that a father can be. I have to say, it made me, lately particularly, I've felt better about just the circumstance of kind of not having kids and the realization that it's pretty unlikely that I will. It really made me think about it, to see that. Look at this, they got a Halloween store opening. This was the bank. Oh no, this was Bye Bye Baby. This was the bank. Which was the bank? No, that was the bank. The cookie place was the bank. So Bye Bye Baby is gonna become the Halloween store. That's gonna be gigantic. Oh man, right here too. A lot of people buying Halloween crap. Whatever. When is Halloween? It's October. It's a long time away. Well, I'm sad about Lou Dobbs. I don't think this story that's being pushed out all over Twitter is 100% true. It seems like a social engineering operation. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't like that. Anyway, okay. Thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to become a sponsor on Subscribestar.com and Patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or Odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth or crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. Don't forget to watch John Cullen Investigates tomorrow at 7:30.